We are losing, in a short period of time, a gentleman who has made a difference for this House, this Congress, House and Senate, has made a difference to the civility of this House. A gentleman who, by the way, is not responsible in any way for the lack of civility that from time to time breaks out in this House. I refer, Madam Speaker, to our parliamentarian, Tom Wickham. I've had the privilege of knowing him all of his days in the House of Representatives.
September 17th, 2020, the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. That was Democratic Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, followed immediately by Republican Minority Whip Steve Scalise.
Continue this tribute to Tom Wickham. So, Tom, congratulations on what you've done to preserve the integrity of this institution.
Both party leaders offering a rare bipartisan tribute to a House staffer, a retiring parliamentarian. The C-SPAN audience knows the parliamentarian from House rules and procedures and various parliamentary inquiries and interruptions. But what about the personal side of the job? The unrivaled opportunity to see Congress history up close and personal, watching it all from the front, facing the chamber, and seeing all the faces. What's that like? In this episode of C-SPAN's podcast, The Weekly, we find out. We hear directly from the person whom the House honored that day 5 years ago, parliamentarian Tom Wickham. For over a quarter century, Tom Wickham witnessed firsthand some of the most dramatic and iconic moments in House history. In this podcast, we hear those moments. Tom Wickham's 5 most memorable moments as House parliamentarian. Then we go behind the scenes as he tells us what he saw for each of them from his front row spot on the House floor. Tom Wickham's career in the House Parliamentarian office spanned over 25 years. He began under Republican Speaker Newt Gingrich and ended under Democratic Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He served as the actual parliamentarian for 8 years, 2012 to 2021. Now, Tom Wickham is Vice President at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Tom Wickham, welcome to C-SPAN's podcast, The Weekly.
Thanks so much for having me, Howard. Excited to be here.
All right, first question, obvious question. What is a parliamentarian?
Well, the parliamentarian of the House is the body's top procedural advisor. The parliamentarian advises the members, the staff, the speaker, the general public on proper parliamentary procedure under the Constitution, the rules of the House, and Jefferson's Manual of Parliamentary Procedure. Most of this takes place in the House chamber. There's a parliamentarian that is on the House floor at all times the House is in session, and the office considers advising the presiding officer, whether it be a speaker or another member, as the office's top priority.
Why did you want to be a House parliamentarian?
Well, that's an interesting story. I don't think anyone grows up saying, oh, I want to be a parliamentarian. My interest was in government, and then I went to law school and started to focus on writing and editorial work. And that led me to the Office of Legislative Counsel in the House of Representatives, and they were prepared to offer me a job writing the bills. But at that point, Speaker Gingrich had imposed a hiring freeze on certain offices, and so the Office of Legislative Counsel was unable to offer me a job, but they said the parliamentarian was looking for someone, and I said, what is a parliamentarian and how do you spell it? So it really was something that was new for me, and I used the rest of my time. The office made it very clear that on-the-job training was the way to learn, and then over 20-some years, you really discover that you're comfortable and you can start executing the job as a parliamentarian.
The obvious follow-up question to what you just said, how do you spell parliamentarian?
Oh, that is a excellent question. They had it. It's been the focus of at least 2 Jeopardy questions on multiple letter words, House of Representatives, which officials. So it's something that has entered into the mainstream, but we take our origin from the House of Commons and some of the foreign parliaments that consider their members to be parliamentarians.
How many parliamentarians have there been in the history of Congress?
Well, Jason Smith, the current parliamentarian, is only the 6th person to serve as parliamentarian since the office was formally established in 1928. Mr. Daschler, Louis Daschler, was the first parliamentarian, and he served for 46 years. Charles Johnson, the third parliamentarian, he is still affiliated with the office 60 years after coming to the House in 1964. So at 25 years, I still kind of feel like the baby of the family.
All right. Before we get to the clips, your most memorable moments, I have two burning questions. What do you do, and I've always wanted to know this, what do you do when there's a really long speech in the House? Minority Leader Jeffries recently gave an 8-hour speech. Special orders. And there's no rulings, and there's no parliamentary inquiries, and so on. What are you doing during those extended remarks?
Well, the office prides itself on preparation. John Sullivan, the fourth parliamentarian, would often say, we're getting ready for 10 of the next 5 problems. So there is a lot of threat assessment, hypotheticals that are being run through, constant interaction with the other 5 parliamentarians on the staff. And so we're preparing for what possibly could occur. But I'm not going to lie, Howard. Human nature does take over. And that's where you have these very meaningful conversations with the member presiding. Steve Womack was the one, a member from Arkansas, a very outstanding presiding officer, was the one who was sitting through the lion's share of the Leader Jeffries' recent lengthy speech. And you talk to them about their philosophy. You talk to them about baseball. I happen to know Mr. Womack is a fan of the greatest Major League Baseball team, the St. Louis Cardinals. And then you just pass the time in a way that makes them feel comfortable, often explaining the procedural situation, the history of long speeches, and then preparing for those next parliamentary inquiries.
Okay, the other question I've always wanted to know is, you as a retired parliamentarian, what's the current name? The current parliamentarian's name is?
Jason Smith.
Okay, if Tom Wickham's watching and Jason Smith makes a ruling, and you think it's absurd and wrong, are you like yelling at the screen and throwing your bowl of popcorn and just like cursing out, like you can imagine like John Madden on the sidelines yelling, or John McEnroe yelling at the umpires, or are you a little more reserved if they're making a ruling that you don't agree with?
Absolutely not. We are not yelling at the screen. I like to think of the former parliamentarians as a guild, the Parliamentarians Guild, those people that have been in that position when the pressure is so high and you have very compelling arguments on each side of the issue. What I do, Howard, is a lot what you do for C-SPAN is archival work. I'm always teaching the business community about how Congress works. And this year, reconciliation, rescissions have been very popular subjects. And then I will go back and do research with groups like the Center for Effective Lawmaking. That's a group that's run out of University of Virginia and Vanderbilt, in which you can see trends and you're assessing those. And those may or may not be shared with the parliamentarian's office, but there is no Monday morning quarterbacking that's going on here.
All right, let's go to the clips now. These are Tom Wickham's most memorable moments watching firsthand on the House floor throughout his career as House parliamentarian. Here's the first moment, December 19th, 1998. A unique moment in House history, not least of which it was a rare Saturday session. Here's House Speaker nominee, and that's the key word, nominee, Bob Livingston, Republican from Louisiana, announcing he would vote to impeach President Clinton. Not a surprise. Then saying something else, which was a surprise.
To the President, I would say, sir, you have done great damage to this nation over this past year. And while your defenders are contending that further impeachment proceedings would only protract and exacerbate the damage to this country, I say that you have the power to terminate that damage and heal the wounds that you have created. You, sir, may resign your post. House will be in order. And the House will be in order. And I can only challenge you in such fashion if I am willing to heed my own words. To my colleagues, my friends, and most especially my wife and family, I have hurt you all deeply, and I beg your forgiveness. I was prepared to lead our narrow majority as Speaker, and I believe I had it in me to do a fine job. But I cannot do that job or be the kind of leader that I would like to be under current circumstances. So I must set the example that I hope President Clinton will follow. I will not stand for Speaker of the House on January 6th, but rather I shall remain as a backbencher in this Congress that I so dearly love for approximately 6 months into the 106th Congress, whereupon I shall vacate my seat and ask my governor to call a special election to take my place. I thank my constituents for the opportunity to serve them. I hope they will not think badly of me for leaving. I thank Alan Martin, my chief of staff, and all of my staff for their tireless work on my behalf. And I thank my wife most especially for standing by me. I love her very much. God bless America.
Okay, Tom Wickham, why is that one of your 5 most memorable moments?
Well, Howard, the backdrop for this speech was the first presidential impeachment to come to the floor in 130 years. Every member of the House was on the floor. They had prepared their speeches very meticulously, calling upon history and the precedents to try to make their case in this very rare proceeding. My part, I was called upon to research impeachment, but I was told as the new parliamentarian, don't worry, it will never happen. So preparation was really focused on preparing for this very rare procedure. So when Mr. Livingston made this rather surprising speech, you heard shouts from the other members that you resign, and they were not knowing what was going to come. He surprised everyone, including the House Parliamentarian who I mentioned earlier, Charlie Johnson. He hung his head in emotion when that announcement was made. It was a rare display from someone like Charlie, who had been in the House for 30 years coming up to that point, and he's been quoted as saying that that was the most emotional moment that he had seen in the House. So at that point, after the speech, Democratic members were going over to Representative Livingston and asking him to reconsider. And everyone was trying to deal with the shock that had occurred with the backdrop of this very important impeachment proceeding. So you had a very surreal debate that unfolded, which was a mix of these very intense, scholarly, well-prepared impeachment arguments and tributes to Representative Livingston asking him to reconsider. And then the House went on to vote on impeachment articles later that day.
When this is happening, where are you? You're standing in the back watching all the faces?
The main parliamentarian is in the seat to the immediate left of the presiding officer. Ray LaHood was the Speaker pro tem on that day, an outstanding presiding officer, an outstanding public servant. Charles Johnson would be to its immediate left. The rest of the parliamentarians would be down the rostrum and watching the events unfold.
And everyone's surprised by this, everyone you've named.
Yes, and I think the proof of that is many of the members shouting, "You resign," when Representative Livingston made his initial call for President Clinton. And in today's Washington, D.C., that would really be unthinkable with social media and leaks and et cetera, that even the members of the House being caught off guard.
I'm trying to think. I can't recall. Your characterization is spot on. You have the political surprise. You have, as you said, everyone's preparing for something else. No one knew this was coming, as you say, before social media. I can't think of it. Or just the politics and the legal and just the House procedures, everything colliding at once. And a very personal story. This is, he admits he's been cheating, essentially, in that speech. I can't recall, I don't know if you can, a similar circumstance or anything that's so much drama wrapped into this thunderclap of an announcement.
No, Howard, that's why I characterize it as one of the most memorable things I've seen.
Moment 2, our next memorable moment from Tom Wickham, September 29th, 2008. America is in the middle of a presidential election, and America is in the middle of a credit and financial crisis. That day, the House debates and votes on a bailout. The House rejects the troubled asset relief package by a vote of 205 to 228. For a sample of the debate that preceded that vote on September 29, 2008, here are two Republicans with opposite positions.
So I say to my colleagues, before you vote, ask yourselves why you came here, and vote with courage and integrity to those principles. If, like me, you came here because you believe in limited government and the freedom of the American marketplace, I urge you, vote in accordance with your convictions. Duty is ours. Outcomes belong to God. The American people and our posterity deserve to know that there were men and women in this Congress who opposed the Leviathan state in this hour. And if you do this, I promise you, I will stand with you, and I believe with all my heart, the American people will stand with you as well. Stand up for limited government and economic freedom. Stand up for the American taxpayer. Reject this bailout and vote no on the Emergency Economic Stabilization Act.
That was Indiana Congressman and future Trump Vice President Mike Pence. And now, here's then House Budget Committee ranking member and future Speaker Paul Ryan.
Colleagues, we're in the moment. This bill doesn't have everything I wanted it. It got a lot of good things in it, but we're here. We're in this moment. And if we fail to do the right thing, heaven help us. If we fail to pass this, I fear the worst is yet to come. The problem we have here is we're 1 month away from an election. We're all worried about losing our jobs. And all of us, most of us say, this thing needs to pass, but I want you to vote for it, not me. Well, unfortunately, a majority of us are going to have to vote for this. And we're going to have to do that because we have a chance of arresting that crash. Just maybe this will work. And so for me and for my own conscience, so I can look myself in the mirror tonight, so I can go to sleep with a clear conscience, I want to know that I did everything I could to stop it from getting worse, to stop this Wall Street problem from infecting Main Street. And I want to get on my airplane and go home and see my 3 kids and my wife that I haven't seen in a week and look them in the eye and know that I did what I thought was right for them and their future. And I believe with all my heart, as bad as this is, it could get a whole lot worse. And that's why I think we have to pass this bill.
All right, Tom Wickham, Paul Ryan in that clip says we are in this moment, and we are playing Tom Wickham's 5 most memorable moments as House Parliamentarian. Why did you pick the TARP vote?
Well, for the entire week preceding that vote, there were top-level bipartisan leadership meetings at the White House involving bipartisan leaders from the House and Senate to try to address this catastrophic economic situation. And the answer was TARP, the Troubled Assets Relief Program. At one point, the Secretary of the Treasury was at the White House and fell to one knee in front of Speaker Pelosi, as famously described, begging her not to blow up the deal. That was the backdrop for this vote. And that vote was held during the day, And during that vote, as it became clear that the vote was going to fail, members began reporting to the presiding officer and to the rostrum that the markets were being gravely affected. And Ellen Tauscher, the presiding officer for that vote, was uniquely situated for the moment as a former investment banker and one of the first women to become a member of the New York Stock Exchange. So eventually the vote failed, and Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke at the time characterized it as he felt like he had been hit by a truck. And I think everyone in the chamber felt that way. The stock market then went down by 777 points, the largest one-day decline in U.S. history. The bill would pass a week later, but that was a very memorable chapter in the Great Recession.
People in the chamber are aware the stock market is reacting in real time to what's happening in the House? Is this all, it's like one big meta, everything's on top of each other. The House is voting and they're aware of the stock market declining at the same time.
Extremely chaotic. Members are very savvy. They knew how this vote would affect the economic situation. And the proof of that was being bandied around the chamber, and you heard that. And then, as I said, very dire circumstances with high-level meetings involving the president, the Secretary of Treasury, Speaker, leader. You knew this was a very, very serious situation.
Now, number 3 of Tom Wickham's most memorable moments. January 23rd, 2007. President George W. Bush delivers the State of the Union address. Here's how he opens.
Thank you very much. And tonight I have the high privilege and distinct honor of my own as the first president to begin the State of the Union message with these words: Madam Speaker. In his day, the late Congressman Thomas D'Alessandro Jr. from Baltimore, Maryland, saw Presidents Roosevelt and Truman at this rostrum. But nothing could compare with the sight of his only daughter, Nancy, presiding tonight as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Congratulations, Madam Speaker. Congratulations.
Tom Wickham.
The election of Speaker Pelosi was, as the first female speaker, was historic, and I was humbled to be a part of that tremendous achievement. And this being a State of the Union, State of the Unions are special in their own right because of the gathering of all 3 branches of government in that small, intimate chamber. And when President Bush made that announcement, it was truly memorable in terms of history, bipartisanship, dignity. What really struck me was President Bush invoked Speaker Pelosi's father, who had served in the House. It was noteworthy that George W. Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, also had served in the House. And then I think back to all of the members of the House and Senate that were in the chamber at that time. Senators Obama, McCain, Clinton, Biden, Thune, Schumer, Trent Lott, Senators Grassley and Harkin from my home state of Iowa, and then the House members that we've talked about, future speakers, John Boehner, Paul Ryan, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. McHenry with his own special place in history, and future Vice President Pence. When you're able to be in that room for that State of the Union, you can look out from the rostrum and ask yourself, who's the next person to take up the mantle of leadership and someday maybe in the future giving the speech.
What are you doing during the State of the Union address? What does the House Parliamentarian do during this?
If I'm going to be quite honest, it is extremely stressful. You are trying to prepare for what may occur, whether it's an outburst from a member that we've seen in recent States of the Union, or something in the gallery, or something that you have to prepare the Speaker or the Vice President to do, or even perhaps involving the President. And those are very weighty times on the Parliamentarian. So in addition to the history and taking it all in, there is a lot of stress on that evening.
That's so interesting. I didn't realize there was that much stress, because I always figured, well, the Sergeant at Arms handles anything, but you would be called in to do something if needed.
Each person on the rostrum has a role in those procedures, and as you and your audience know, it's one of the most visible nights in the Congress.
By the way, I have to add, even though you haven't been identified every time you've been on C-SPAN, you probably have had among the most number of appearances on C-SPAN. And a night like the State of the Union, we see a lot of you because of the camera angles. And when there are rulings, and every day we see a lot of you on TV. And are you aware of? Does that matter at all? Did you know that cameras are showing you? Does your family see you when?
Yes, and I've always lamented that the current parliamentarian, Jason Smith, has a much better face for TV than I ever did.
Now we go to January 5th, 2011. It's the opening day of the 112th Congress. In the 2010 midterm elections, Democrats lose control of the House. Nancy Pelosi steps down as House Speaker and passes the gavel to John Boehner.
Now, recognizing our roles under the Constitution, united in our love of our country, we now engage in a strong symbol of American democracy, the peaceful and respectful exchange of power. I now pass this gavel, which is larger than most gavels here, but the gavel of choice of Mr. Speaker Boehner. I now pass this. I now pass this gavel and the sacred trust that goes with it to the new Speaker. God bless you, Speaker Boehner.
It's still just me. Madam Speaker, thank you for your kind words, and thank you for your service to this institution.
All right, Tom Wickham, why is this moment among your most memorable moments?
Well, I thought the line, "It's still just me," from Speaker Boehner really captured him as what you see is what you get. Plain spoken Midwesterner, smoker, drinks Merlot, sometimes engages in foul language. The son of a tavern owner, was the first person in his family to go to college. It was a showing that there is a pathway for everyone in the United States, and a pathway for everyone in the House. Boehner's rise is significant since he started off as a rebel in the House as part of the the Gang of Seven uncovering the House bank scandal. He was then in leadership after the Gingrich Revolution, got knocked out of leadership, went on to become a very successful chair of the Education and Workforce Committee, and then came back to leadership and eventually got to the speaker's chair. And I think of members like Mr. Boehner, Mr. McHenry, who also started a bit on the rebellious side, who then made their route into the speaker's chair. That I'm always optimistic about the journey that members can take in their House careers.
Boy, I have a question I want to ask you about what you just said, but I need to. You keyed in on John Boehner saying it's still just me, which is an amazing line. Nancy Pelosi says, "I now pass this gavel, which is larger than most gavels here." But I actually don't understand what that means.
If you look at the clip, the speaker was given an oversized gavel by a woodworker in his district, and he wanted to use that. And many speakers have used their own personal gavels, along with, our historian could tell you, one of the very, very old gavels that is used on every opening day.
Tom, we're about to go to our fifth and final memorable moment from you, but you strike me as not only a lover of the rules and the standards, but also a lover as an observer of politics and political history, not partisan, but just you seem that you know the history and respect the history of the politics of this country.
Yes, this is something that is frequently used in describing the rules and procedures, is their origin and where the United States was in history at the time that the rule was first adopted, and where the country is now, and trying to document those changes. And one of the things that I pride myself on is reading every speaker's biography, getting a sense of the history of the House that way, and that helps to describe the rules and precedents of the House to anyone who might be interested in that history.
Now, Tom Wickham's most memorable House moment, number 5, January 25th, 2012. It's the day Arizona Democrat Gabrielle Giffords resigns from Congress. The resignation coming after she was shot in the head during a constituent meeting in Tucson the year before. We'll play 3 clips to tell the story of that day. First, speaking on behalf of Gabby Giffords, and then reading her resignation letter, her close friend, Florida Democratic Congresswoman Deborah Wasserman Schultz.
And let me just say, a point of personal privilege, that for the last year, it has been one of the honors of my life. And the most important thing to remember, that no matter what we argue about here on this floor or in this country, that there is nothing more important than family and friendship. And that should be held on high above all else. And I will always carry that in my heart. And even though I know we won't see each other every day, Gabby, we will be friends for life. Yes. For life.
Next, Democratic Minority Whip Steny Hoyer.
I love Gabby Giffords. I was honored when she first ran for office, before she was elected, to go to her district, as I have done for so many others in this country, to stand by her side, to walk down the streets of her community with her, to see in her the beauty, not only a person. Many of us see the outward visage of us all. But Gabby's beauty is in the heart, in the soul, in the spirit. The House of Representatives of America has been made proud by this extraordinary daughter of this House, who served so well during her tenure here, who felt so deeply about her constituents,
and cared so much for her country. Gabby, we love you. We have missed you. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether you were able to hear that response as Gabby looked with that extraordinary smile, the twinkle in her eyes, as she said to me and to all of us, "And I miss you." Do any of us doubt that that is the case?
And finally, from January 25th, 2012, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and Speaker John Boehner.
Mr. Speaker, in appreciation once again for your courtesies enabling this to happen, I yield back the balance of our time.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. The chair would remind all members to be in proper business attire when you come to the floor of the House.
All right, Tom Wickham, bring us back to that day.
That was one of the most poignant moments in my career. It showed the humanity of the body, where you saw members talking to their colleague who had sacrificed so much for her constituents, and they were addressing her as a colleague. And although we only heard from Ms. Wasserman Schultz and Mr. Hoyer, there was a bipartisan outpouring because every member knew the sacrifice that she had made, and that the outpouring of support for her as a fellow member of Congress is something that I will never forget.
This is the first of what is now, unfortunately, more commonplace violence against politicians. And I believe the shooting there was nothing like that before Gabby Giffords was shot. And just listening to, as you described, bipartisan, I imagine it's hitting the members of Congress. My God, this could happen to me, or is this a new era we're in? Did any of that kind of feeling, that drama, that emotion?
That's correct. She was carrying out a constituent service event in Arizona, just as every other member does, to try to carry out their role as representatives, and it underscored the sacrifice they all make in being members of the House.
You couldn't really see, I mean, obviously this is audio, but Gabby Giffords does say, "I miss you," when Steny Hoyer is speaking to her. And then Steny Hoyer gives a fairly eloquent response explaining what she had said. And just hearing that right now, there are not that many unscripted emotional moments in the House. These are all speeches and prepared remarks, debates, arguments, and so on. But this seems like a real raw, in-the-moment, human moment that is just stripped of all politics. It's just a very human thing that people are watching. Is that what you kind of saw in the House that day?
You're absolutely correct. The parliamentarians prepare, as I said, for 10 of the next 5 situations. And that is the world that office tries to harness. But those moments where it's unplanned moment of joy or an unplanned moment of sadness are really what makes the place special.
All right, Tom Wickham, those are your 5 most memorable moments, but there is a bonus clip I want to play. We return to the House floor on September 17th, 2020, the day which opened this podcast, the tribute to Tom Wickham. Here again, Republican Minority Whip Steve Scalise.
I know Heather is probably watching on C-SPAN. Not sure how many other people are, but Heather hopefully is, your wife. She will have more time to work with you. I'm not sure who the parliamentarian of your house is. I'm the House Republican whip, but in my house, Jennifer is, the one who plays that role. But in your house, hopefully Heather sees you more because you are here when we're here. And sometimes those are late hours. Sometimes those are long weekends. And we appreciate the sacrifices you've made. Hopefully in this next role in your life, you'll be able to enjoy more time with your wife, Heather, and your family. And we truly do thank you for playing this part of or your role in history and adding to what is great about this great democracy. And with that, I would yield back again. If for those of you who can't, do you mind standing up and so everybody here in the chamber can see you and pay the proper tribute?
Tom Wickham, how common is that?
It's very uncommon, and I was humbled by the reference and have been very fortunate to have a supportive family, my wife Heather and my children Elizabeth and Brady, that were able to be supportive when their father was at the House of Representatives for many late nights and many long weekends. And Mr. Scalise's point is reflective of all the staffers' sacrifice when they were working for the House or the Senate.
So you went from one chamber to another chamber, from the House chamber to the Chamber of Commerce, and Steve Scalise says you will be able to spend more time with your wife, Heather, and your family. Are you, bring us up to date, are you spending more time with your family now, or are you working even harder than you did in the House?
Yes, I'm allowed to spend a little more time with my family. I'm happy to be representing the business community at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and to meet them where they are. They don't have many overnight sessions. Saturday or Sunday work is quite rare, but it is similar in its intensity as we represent the business community here in Washington, D.C. and in the States.
All right, I want to put you on the spot. Last question just came to me, then we'll let you go. Your most favorite obscure House rule, something that you think is just the oddest obscure rule that you know and maybe no one else knows.
I don't know if it's the oddest, but I know a way to get parliamentarians talking and thinking and their blood boiling is when we talk about ties. In the House of Representatives, when there is a tie, the question loses. In the House of Representatives, when there is a tie, that's a loss. In the Senate, under the Constitution, the Vice President comes in to break a tie. In the case of an electoral count, if there's a tie, the House picks the president. And this is something that all legislative bodies deal with in different ways. Recounts, sometimes they'll pick a card, roll a dice to determine what happens in a tie, and that transcends politics. Your listeners know how upsetting the rules about overtime in football are, or what happens if there's a tie in baseball. And those are the ways in which we tend to try to connect the obscure world the parliamentarian lives in to real life, those type of analogies. If you're talking about the House alone, the House has prohibited hats in the chamber, the wearing of hats in the chamber, since 1837. Matt Wisniewski, the wonderful House historian, has about a 3-page dossier on the history of hats in the chamber, which I would recommend to all your viewers.
And there is no, in the Senate, you can wear a hat, right?
I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Senate, Howard. You're going to have to get Elizabeth or one of the Senate parliamentarians on the show.
So this is the wrong time to ask, do you prefer the House or the Senate? Or are you just going to punt on that? You're not going to answer that.
I am a House person. That's well known.
Tom Wickham, thank you for joining us on C-SPAN's podcast, The Weekly.
Thank you, Howard. It's been great to be here.